Mobius. A twist in the fabric of space where time becomes a loop. 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 Where time becomes a loop.
When what becomes a loop?
When time becomes a loop.
What?
When time becomes a loop.
Time?
When time becomes a loop.
Okay, let's stop it now. That was Orbital. Well, actually, that is a sample from Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yes. Yes, it is.
The episode Cause and Effect, right?
Yeah. Yeah, funnily enough, there's a lot of Star Trek episodes where the main ship explodes and then the crew generally has to work out how to stop it from happening. Like, they'll start remembering that they're in a loop.
Time loops. We've got them.
Yeah. We've got them.
Plenty of them. In fact,
I mean, it's actually a trope, you know? I mean, Groundhog Day aside, it's like... It's a well-used storytelling device. I think Xena Warrior Princess did it. I think Hercules did it. I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer did it. Many TV series use it as a storytelling device, usually to make a character learn a lesson in quick time.
But who did it first?
Was it Twilight Zone? I feel like they did everything first.
Probably. I mean, it was probably Shakespeare, right?
I don't think Shakespeare did a time loop story. No, I don't think time travel was really a...
Isn't like every story, in one way or another, Shakespeare story?
Yes, but I'm not sure that Shakespeare invented those stories. He just happened to write them in the best way.
Yeah. Well, if he did make a time loop story, it would be quite tragic. It'd be like Macbeth, but forever.
Oh god, can you imagine?
Right. Well, what we do know is that Groundhog Day isn't the first, since the Star Trek episode premiered a year before it. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Well, now you know. 1992.
Mm.
It really doesn't feel like the Next Generation is the 90s. It feels like the 80s or something.
Well, I mean, it started in the 80s. 18... I know it finished in 95. There's 7 series, so 88.
So when did Voyager begin?
Voyager began in 95. Deep Space Nine started before Voyager. I think Deep Space Nine started in 93.
God, so many of them. You could have a family like dinner party with all the Star Treks.
Well, you know, the thing is about Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, Voyager, they're all set in the same time, so they all overlap somehow in many ways and reference each other. The cool thing about that is that it leaves scope for a wide variety of retellings of stories. I don't know enough about Deep Space Nine, and I know everyone says I should watch it to say whether... Do they have a time loop episode in Deep Space Nine?
I think it's likely. I mean, they certainly have a time travel episode, but I did some very, very minor research, so I can't answer that fully. But I think that talking about Star Trek The Next Generation, and this episode in particular, it's kind of been done to death.
Oh, definitely.
It's a great episode, but let's talk about some of the more underappreciated ones first.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to Voyager.
Yeah.
The underappreciatedest of them all. I haven't seen Enterprise, I can't really vouch for that.
Well, I mean, I think Enterprise is fairly popular amongst Trek fans, but because of when a series has a bad final episode, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth, and I know that Enterprise's final episode specifically was not praised because actually it took place on the Enterprise from the Enterprise D or the Enterprise E. I'm not sure which one it is by this point, but the Enterprise holodeck, and it's Commander Riker and Deanna Troi, and they are watching a hologram, a holonovel, and they're taking part in it. And most people were really disappointed with that because the characters probably deserved more, whereas Riker and Troi sort of take away the limelight. Anyway, sorry, side note there on it, but no, it's Enterprise was popular and then it wasn't. A bit like Smallville, actually. Smallville's another one of those series that really died by the end. They were trying too much in too many different ways.
I just remember it being very boring and basically too Buffy. Like with the Monster of the Week, they had the bronze but like more, I don't know, farm boy.
Well, yeah, but I mean, a lot of shows do take the Monster of the Week. I mean, even something like Dexter, there is a Monster of the Week aspect to it.
Monster of the series?
Monster of the series, yes, but that would be your big bad, but that's very Buffy as well. You have a Monster of the series, then you have the Monster of the Week.
Okay.
Or the Problem of the Week.
We will definitely get more into Buffy later, because that's what we do.
Uh-huh.
But let's break down Voyager first. So the episode is called Coda, and it starts with the Captain Janeway and I think Chakotay. Mm-hmm. They're going in a shuttle back to the Voyager, and then things start going bad. But
anytime there's a shuttle in Star Trek, it's gonna crash or someone's gonna get kidnapped. Sorry.
Basically, but I don't know. What to me there's some issue with this episode. There's a lot of freak accidents. I mean, the thing about a time loop is that time needs to loop and repeat itself. Mm-hmm. But here, every time it loops, it very quickly deviates in ways that wouldn't really be possible. I mean, suddenly at one of the deviations, I think in the third loop, very early on, there's a massive beam of light, and suddenly Janeway has an out-of-body experience, and the episode becomes about something completely different. Mm-hmm. And from here on, the time doesn't loop; it just keeps going endlessly. So it's very confusing. I mean, she dies a couple of times, but then now she might be dead or she might not be dead. She meets her father, right? Mm-hmm. Who tries to convince her that she's dead.
She's dead, and that she's been reliving her experiences because she can't let go, and so Janeway in her Janeway way doesn't like to do anything anyone tells her, so refuses.
I'm sorry for laughing, but I put on some Sonic Youth, but I think I accidentally put it on at too slow of speed.
Oh. It's alright, doesn't sound bad to me.
He sounds so drunk.
I suppose he does a bit, actually.
I'm gonna speed this thing up. Meanwhile, so her father, she's trying to convince her that she's dead because she has to make a decision to pass on to another level of existence. However, turns out that
it's a trap.
Well, yeah.
It's a trap.
It's Star Trek, right?
Uh-huh. But that revelation happens right at the end of the episode, so it's like it's like a twist, but Janeway knows there's something up the entire way through, so it's writing wise it's sort of a weak ending. It's like, yeah, we knew something was up, we knew Janeway wasn't dead. I mean, she's the captain. If this had happened to, I don't know, Harry Kim, and alright, I generally dislike Harry Kim episodes. Not that I dislike the character, but when the episodes are focused on him, it's always about him being in love and it being unrequited and blah, blah, blah. Whereas a Janeway episode should not involve her dying in any way, because she's going to survive. She's the lead,
Yeah. I don't know.
There's no tension in it.
I vaguely remember a series called Hex, mm-hmm. but I think whatever I saw wasn't the first season.
That's the one with the witches, and it was live action, and it was British.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
Because I remember vividly, so we're following a character for a couple of episodes as her main little lead, and then she just dies, like episode 3 or something, and then it just switches tone and everything completely. It felt like they were going for one direction, and then the audience didn't like it, or like the test screening didn't like it, or something, so that it would change.
Well, it's funny. Joss Whedon, when he created Buffy, and sorry, sidebar, but wanted to have, and if you've seen Welcome to the Hellmouth, there's a character called Jesse, and he appears to be a main character. And Joss Whedon wanted to have Jesse in the opening credits, but he dies in the first episode. But he wanted to trick the audience and to make them feel like nobody was safe, and that was a good way of doing it. But he didn't actually manage to do it until Tara or Tara, depending on your pronunciation.
Tara.
Season 6. So, yeah, he added her, and then, spoiler, she quickly died. And if you haven't seen it, then it's your own fault.
Right. Well, anyway, it's sort of no one watches the first series of Buffy, anyway.
No. I'm talking about season 6, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course, Tara. Doi. Anyway, so Janeway's father, it turns out, is an alien who needs to volunteer. But that kind of sounds to me like sort of a vampire deal, like she has to kind of invite him in or volunteer.
Well, she had to go voluntarily, yeah. But I think it's because they aren't a corporeal species or something.
Did you mention this was also
What?
the alien thing?
Yeah.
Oh, in which case, moving on to Discovery. And this episode is called Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad.
Best episode of the entire season of Discovery, actually.
Yes, so we might, spoil this a little bit, but...
I don't know, because it's a time loop episode, it sort of spoils itself. It's connected to other episodes in the series, so we won't go into too much detail.
It is connected in ways, but I think this is the only episode of Discovery which works as a standalone episode.
Yeah, I think a good series needs standalone episodes with character development. Something Discovery has been trying to do is connect all the episodes up, but this one was disconnected but had quite a lot of nice character development. What was the title of the episode? What's it called?
What, the time loop one?
Yeah.
It's called The Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad.
That's what the episode's called?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Right. I kind of miss the serialized TV shows. Since Netflix and Game of Thrones and all of this, it's sort of become like the big thing to always keep going forward. Even like...
No, but even Game of Thrones has standalone episodes. And sorry, Karen.
Like Twin Peaks, I think the first season works really well because it's not serialized, but it feels... Every episode feels like a good chapter, like it concludes something in a way, or it adds something. It kind of feels like Mindhunter in that way.
We should talk about Twin Peaks another time, actually, because I feel like that's a big discussion to have between us.
Don't get me started.
Don't get me started.
Honey, you want Twin Peaks? Well, I got 3 of them. That was funny in my head than out loud, but who cares? In any case. So what's interesting about this episode is that yes, it's a time loop episode. However, we're for the first time, as far as I can recall, not in the perspective of the person experiencing this time loop. Instead, with Michael Burnham, who has no idea what's going on and has to be convinced over and over again that she's in a loop.
Yeah, by Lieutenant Engineer guy. Oh, what's his name?
I have his name right here because I'm sort of prepared.
Oh.
Right? His name is Paul Stamets.
Oh, Lieutenant Stamets.
Played by Anthony Rapp.
Who probably this episode changes the most. He seems to be under the effect of these fungal spores, because he's doing all these jumps.
He's dropping some trippy shit now.
And it's why he's able to see through the time loop. But yeah, no, it's really interesting, and it was really good that they didn't do it from Michael's perspective, because that's been done to death, you know. And I mean, the only issue with this episode really is that it's so different from the others in the series that is Discovery, that it feels sort of outside of itself. Whereas the old serialization was you knew that something different would happen and that there would be some Deus Ex Machina here and there. This one you felt the Deus Ex Machina quite strongly, like time crystals and all of this stuff. It sort of came out of nowhere from left field.
But that's also, the Star Trek way of being. I think it's not so much a detriment to the episode as much as it's a detriment to the show.
Well, yeah,
because
the series,
I wish Discovery was more like this. I mean, okay, I'm not gonna harp on too long about Buffy, but what's very nice about it, right? What's nice about it is that it is serialized. Each episode sort of works on its own, but it's almost always pushing the story forward. Whenever it's not pushing the story forward, it's pushing character development forward in a permanent way.
Yes.
It's not doing in Star Trek where suddenly they rescue some people who are on the ship permanently, but we never see them again.
Well, yeah, I think Voyager does that with Equinox.
Oh my god.
And they take on these characters who get developed, and then it's like, right, you're just going to be crewmen, we'll never see you again, and then we do never see them again. We don't even know if they survive to get home. It's what?
Do you hear that? For the record, the song is called The Sprawl by Sonic Youth. Get into it.
Oh my.
Keep going, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine. I can't even remember where I was. Equinox. But the nice thing about Star Trek, old Star Trek at least, is that, the separation between episodes, these were established characters, you know who they are, they know who they are, You can't imagine Captain Picard really needing to change much between episode 1 and season 1 and the last episode of season 7, because Picard is established as he is. So when they have their own time loop episode, the character development that takes place is amusing, but it doesn't do anything to change who they are. Buffy, yes, required, because it was about growing up.
Yeah, I like we said in the first episode. I said in the first episode, it's a eternal coming of age show. But I can think of one more issue of Discovery episode, and that begins with the Bee Gees, and it keeps playing "Staying Alive" all over again, giving me so many flashbacks to terrible karaoke nights when drunk people thought it would be a smart thing to play a song before realizing it ends with, the same lines on constant repeat, which I guess is topical, but
I think that's probably why they picked remix. I found that really interesting, because when Star Trek tended to do music in the past, it didn't tend to reference... I mean, it would reference, classical music, and that was always really strange to me, that everyone knew classical music in the 24th century,
because
but
it's
didn't...
objectively better, duh.
Well, sure, but,
That's sarcasm.
It was... Yes, I know, but...
But they might not know.
So using "Staying Alive" as a song, it was the first time it's been done, and finally they said the F word in a Star Trek episode. I don't know if that was that one specifically, but yeah, just good episode, that.
Yeah, totally.
Driving mad episode.
And the fact that they're finally finishing some of the major plot lines in Discovery, I'm very intrigued to see season 2 and to see if we get more standalones. But what got us talking about time loops is the fact that we just watched a new horror film called Happy Deathday. Apparently not so new according to IMDb, or is it? No, 2017 is this year, so we're still fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't really go too much into spoilers here because it's too new and you might not have seen it, but there's definitely some interesting things to talk about here.
I mean, the trailer itself lets you know it's a time. I mean, it's a time loop story. You know, it's effectively girl wakes up and then has a problem to solve, which is the typical time loop story, and every day she learns something new on how to potentially fix the issue.
Except this time the issue is that she keeps getting killed and she has to find out who it might be and why this might be. And this is actually more surprising and interesting than it lets on. I mean, it's not that brilliant or amazing.
It's not original. It has the same punch as a sort of Ryan Murphy script in that it's like, you know, taking the mick out of American college students, and I mean, I found it clever, if nothing else. I thought that it did things to you to trick you that I haven't seen done recently by horror films or thrillers even. And it is a thriller. It's a thriller crossed with a horror film because it's constant. You're constantly trying to work stuff out. I mean, I did work out the final twist in the middle of the film, but I do that. It's just something I do.
Right, it really is something that he does. Although I've got a couple of the twists. I mean, there's so many of them. It's so twisty. It feels like a.
But there was a part in the film, and I won't spoil it, where I went, "This is a great double bluff," because I knew that the direction they were taking us wasn't necessarily the end going to be the big bang twist, you know. I won't say anymore.
Yeah, you actually interrupted me. I was just about to go into a roller coaster analogy, but
Go on.
no, you're all spared.
Hasn't that been done to death?
I just brought it up to be bitching. No, I think nerdy stuff like, well, some other time. So, there's some interesting stuff with the execution, but I wish that it would have committed more to some of its ideas. So during the beginning, which obviously is going to be a loop part, where we keep going through routines, we keep getting familiarized with everything, but I think the first loop is a bit too on the nose. I mean, it's all such an obvious setup that there's nothing subtle about it. But what's interesting is how they used music here. Each location, each moment had its own piece of music, which at first felt a bit disjointed. It felt like it didn't really fit into the film we were watching, but it started making more sense on the second loop, where it played the exact same music. And now because now suddenly the true emotions were getting revealed. And then, from there on forward, every time we go back to the same location in the next loop, we would hear slight modifications to music and new layers on top of these loops. It kind of felt like an Ableton live set, and it was really quite cool. However, they didn't take this much further than here. They kept it going for like half the film, and then they were like, yeah, let's just do something completely different, which sort of made sense for where the story was going. But I wish that they didn't.
Yeah, but this is a mainstream film. What I've noticed actually is a trend in newer horror films, things like The Babysitter. There's like this horror comedy thing going on at the moment. It's having a resurgence, and this is definitely a horror thriller comedy, which takes the mick out of itself a fair amount actually, and it can't be too experimental because it still has to be for the people it's aimed at. And then, you know, those of us who want to look a little bit deeper can do, but it still has to impact on people. And if they did, you know, I mean, they could have been subtle about it, but if they're going to experiment, why would they be subtle? It's still Hollywood.
I don't think the audiences are stupid enough not to get this kind of stuff.
I didn't notice this music thing. You did.
No, but I'm sure everyone felt it subconsciously. I mean, all the music was giving a certain mood and was slowly modifying that mood, and the moods kept repeating, and I think the audience noticed that.
The only thing I noticed about the sound really was the jump scares, and actually was quite surprised. Actually managed the first jump scare in the film got me.
Yeah.
And I knew it was coming, and usually I'm really good at timing these things in my head, but on this occasion I was like, I was holding my drink and then it just sort of jumped out of my hands and I caught it at the same time, but it got me, you know. I think I was concentrating on drinking it at the time.
In any case, happy Deathday. Worth a watch. Very, very easy to watch.
Yeah.
Very easy to watch. Maybe I know we kind of watched Mother like not so many weeks ago.
Oh my God, that was horrible. Amazing, but horrible.
Which, you know, God knows what that film is about. But I can think about it for ages. Happy Deathday, I won't remember next week. But it was fun. It was a fun vessel for my weekly popcorn. Just
as a side note, I enjoy the acting in the film. Like I said, there was a sort of Ryan Murphy-esque snappy dialogue thing going on, which you know, hails from popular, or even Joss Whedon actually with Buffy.
I would almost say that that's more directing / editing.
Probably, but I mean the way people talked.
Let me just switch sides since we're going on for forever.
The way they talk in it is sort of this. I'm gonna reference pop culture. I'm gonna snap back at you really quickly. I'm gonna do something incredibly witty and clever. It's not how people talk in day-to-day life, and God, I wish they did, but we don't, unfortunately. It's nice to be articulate, but no one is ever as articulate as they are in these American teen comedies, which is, you know, a thing.
Yeah, but, you know, for anyone who's actually watched Buffy and watches this film, there's some similarities which are really hard to ignore.
Stylistically speaking.
And the character too. Go on.
Like, yeah, no, she is your atypical heroine, in that she starts out horrible and vacuous, and through these experiences, and of course dying every day and remembering it, you're gonna change as a person. It's gonna teach you things, but she slowly learns to trust her instincts and trust herself. And this girl isn't by any means a coward at the beginning, but she uses her strengths in the wrong way, and yeah, she develops throughout, and that's what Buffy is really. At the beginning, she doesn't understand her power, so she uses it in the wrong way, and by the end, she comes to terms with it.
Did I ever tell you about my time loop story?
No.
So I'll give you a brief synopsis. Basically, we start with this man who comes home from work. Well, comes home from something rather, and it seems to be quite a traumatic day. It's very dark, and we don't know what happened that day. But he falls asleep and he wakes up, and he has to live with the outcome of this day. And then every time we loop, we have a new outcome. And our main character doesn't know what happened that day because he's repressed that memory or the idea. So we have to kind of piece together what happened that day, depending on like the different, with the similarities between all the different outcomes. You know, so in one of them he's a hero for some reason, and no one knows why. And one day he loses his job, he's in the news, there's a lot of bad stuff. And turns out that he works a lifeguard, by the way, and turns out that he's mourning the death of his daughter who died drowning. Nowhere near where he was working, but he feels directly responsible for her death.
Yeah, I mean that's a completely valid and interesting use of the time loop trope.
I haven't seen it used in this way, but if it has, I would love to see that.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's been any literature that I'm sure there has been. There must have been, but yeah.
It's gonna be 30 minutes in 10 seconds.
Okay.
So you wanna do a goodbye?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we didn't even talk about Buffy's time loop.
That's okay. You will know it. The episode's called Life Serial. Check it out.
It's great, and it's only a small section of the episode, so there's a lot more.
Okay. So if you're listening to this on time, it'll be lunchtime for you, and hope you have a lovely lunch. Don't choke on your burrito.
Yeah, there's nothing like choking on a burrito. Peace.
Pieces. And
Deuces.